This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Vote counting underway in highly contested Uganda election. A look at the rising security challenge in Mali as 4 UN peacekeepers killed. And another COVID-19 variant, this time in Kenya. Does it impact effectiveness of vaccines? We'll tell you more. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. In business, for his first economic plan, U.S. President-elect Joe Biden unveils a $1.9 trillion stimulus package proposal. All set for a delayed African Nations Championship in Cameroon. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. So good to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta. Let's begin in Uganda, where vote counting is now underway in a hotly contested national election. Voting ended yesterday at 4 p.m. local time, despite initial delays that some polling stations experienced in the morning. There are about 18 million registered voters in the country. The Electoral Commission is mandated to announce the results within 48 hours after polls close. CGTN's Joy Karuki Juma reports.
Ugandans adhere to COVID-19 protocols as they came out in their numbers to vote. Police officers, meanwhile, patrolled the city streets to ensure security was upheld. The hotly contested presidential election pits longtime leader Yoweri Museveni against popular singer-turned-politician Bobi Wine.
Everyone who is here supports the old man, and now people say that the old man has done something bad. I do not understand what that is. At this moment, everyone that was here supports him, and he will improve things here. He is Museveni, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
Voting closed at 4 p.m., with voters already in line allowed to cast their ballot after the cutoff.
Museveni has ruled for a long period, so we want a change.
For me, my vote, the one I've just put in, I expect it to count very much on my future as an individual. And as you see me, we are just looking at the change. We are looking forward for the change.
Ugandans are expecting to know the outcome of their vote within 48 hours of polls closing. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
Let's turn our attention to the DRC. At least 46 civilians have been killed and several others injured in an attack by armed men in the northeast of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Authorities in Ituri province say the victims of the attack all belong to the Pygmy ethnic group. Chris Ochamringa has that story.
The attack happened on Thursday in Masini village in the DRC's northeastern province of Ituri. A group of armed men raided the village and killed 46 pygmies with machetes and guns. A woman and a 2-year-old child survived the attack. They sustained serious injuries but are now receiving treatment at a nearby health facility. The Congolese army says it has deployed troops to pursue the armed men whose identity they have not yet established. But a local NGO has blamed the attack on rebels of a notorious group in eastern DRC called the Allied Democratic Forces. Residents of the area have called on the government to reinforce the security in their area. Hundreds of people were killed in the area last year and thousands others displaced after fierce fighting broke out between fighters of the Lendu and Hema ethnic groups. The east of the DRC has more than 100 armed groups fighting over land and mineral resources. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Force commander of the UN peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic, General Daniel Siddiqui Traoré, visited checkpoints after rebel groups launched an attack near the capital. The incident happened on Wednesday, leaving one Rwandan peacekeeper dead and another injured. The dawn attacks targeted 2 army brigades but were repelled by security forces after intense fighting. At least 30 rebels were reportedly killed while others were arrested. The attacks were the latest after rebel groups vowed to march on the capital to prevent a poll in December that saw the re-election of President Faustin Archange Touadera. Force Commander Traore says that for now, life is returning to normal in the capital.
From the behavior of the population, I see that the people have resumed their normal activities here, thanks to the operations which were carried out yesterday in response to the rebel group's incursion attempt in Bongi. However, through the vigor, robustness and determination of our troops, it is here that the insurgent elements were able to be stopped and therefore we were able to contain them.
Les premiers éléments ont pu être arrêtés et donc on a pu contenir.
People are dying. There's a famine and we have no medicine. We have suffered too much. Currently, people have fled and have taken refuge on the other side. May God support MINUSCA.
In West Africa, 4 United Nations peacekeepers have been killed and 5 others wounded in central Mali. The UN said in a statement that the peacekeepers died after their convoy hit an explosive device and came under attack. No group immediately claimed responsibility. The attack happened 20 kilometers north of Bambasa-Moaoundé town in the Timbuktu region. Islamist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State operate in the region. The Malian Defense Ministry said the peacekeepers who lost their lives were from Cote d'Ivoire. All right, now for more on this, let's speak to Colonel Hassan Stan Lobo, a security expert and a retired colonel in the Nigeria Army, joining us from Lagos. Colonel, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. First and foremost, what's fueling the targeted attacks on peacekeepers in the Sahel?
Thank you so much. It's a common phenomenon that in most theaters, especially where the UN troops are involved, in most cases, you find a situation where warring parties or militias, so to speak, on ground, often don't allow them have the necessary respite they require to carry out their statutory tasks or functions. And this is often because these militias or the warring parties in most cases would always ensure that order is not established. They disrupt truce, they disrupt all sorts of opportunities to create some respite for peace to reign in, because a good number of them knows that if peace is given a chance, they wouldn't, of course, have their way. So you find that at all times, such neutral bodies like the UN are faced with all sorts of attacks and antagonisms, at times even from both sides. These are things the UN has learned to cope with, in ensuring that its troops or its personnel on ground are well protected.
All right. Colonel Hassan Stan, so would it be accurate to interpret the recent attacks as a tactic by the jihadists to exert political pressure on the government in Bamako?
Please say that again. Take it again, please.
Would it be accurate to interpret the recent attacks as a tactic by the jihadists to exert political pressure on the government in Bamako?
Yes, we all know what the situation is in Bamako. I mean, there's all sorts of rivalry between the various warring parties on ground to have control over the situation, to influence political actions, and so on. So there is so much, I would say, acrimony, ongoing between warring troops, between parties, and so on. The government has got to be able to, muster the political will and muster every assistance it can get, avail the UN troops on ground, whatever the support they can avail them to ensure that they succeed in their mission. It is important.
All right. That brings me to my final question. It appears that the foreign forces are unable to bring stability to Mali. What will it take to stabilize the country and the region as a whole?
I'm afraid The only option I would say is to probably have more boots on ground. Because like it is right now, the situation is that bad. And it will call for a holistic approach to the entire thing. I expect a situation where both the carrot and stick diplomacy is brought into play, okay? While there is enough kinetic actions ongoing, there should also be enough of talking going on in the background, especially between the UN and the various warring groups on ground. The leadership of the warring groups must be identified, and some talking should be ongoing to ensure that a holistic approach is given to the whole thing. Once there's a holistic approach, I think I see some leeway. Negotiations must go on. There must be give and take.
All right. Colonel Hassan Stan, let's leave it there for now. Holistic approach and more boots on the ground. Thank you so much for your insight and analysis. Moving on, Kenya appears to have joined the list of countries that have detected a new variant of the coronavirus. Preliminary findings were released by the state-affiliated Kenya Medical Research Institute. KEMRI said a study conducted between June and October 2020 in the southeast of Kenya detected a unique variant. KEMRI, however, admits that more research needs to be done to assess the impact of the variant. Scientists say it is perfectly normal for viruses to mutate. Kenya is approaching 100,000 cases of COVID-19 and has over 1,700 deaths. Meanwhile, the WHO reported that the variant identified in South Africa has found its way into Botswana, Zambia, and the Gambia. Africa has surpassed 3 million COVID-19 cases. The continent's second wave has not peaked and is infecting twice as many people per day compared to the first wave. All right, Kenya appears to have joined the list of countries that have detected the variant. All right, let's have more on this. We spoke to Dr. Ngoy Nsenga, the COVID-19 incident manager at the WHO Regional Office for Africa, and this is what she had to say.
At this point, there is no evidence, not yet at least, that it affects in any way the efficacy of the currently available vaccine. So at this point, there's no kind of worry, because the information, at least the evidence we have so far, is if the vaccine is still very much effective, including toward this new variant. So we are not expecting any change. We are not expecting the vaccination program to be impacted by the current variant of virus. They mutate in a way to adapt themselves to the context to live longer. That's the most of the reason. Most of the time they mutate, and most of the time the mutation do not have any impact either on transmissibility or the severity of the disease. So there is no fear at this point. We are not worried about the impact on operations against the COVID-19 in our region and globally.
Leisure travel via road from South Africa's neighboring countries will have to be put on hold until February. Lengthy queues at many land borders prompted the closure of several ports of entry. South Africa has seen a phenomenal spike in coronavirus cases and is desperately trying to control the second wave through tighter restrictions. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
With 20 South African land borders closed, general travelers from neighboring countries will be barred until the 15th of February.
People will, however, still be allowed to enter or depart the country for the following purposes: for the transportation of fuel, cargo and goods, emergency medical attention for a life-threatening condition, the return of South African nationals or permanent residents or persons with other valid visas, diplomats, the departure of foreign nationals, daily commuters from neighboring countries who attend school in South Africa.
Ramaphosa expressed concern over snaking queues, with many returning after the festive season.
This has exposed many people to infection as they wait to be processed, and it has been difficult to ensure that the health requirements for entry into South Africa are met, with many people arriving without proof of COVID-19 tests.
Long-distance truck drivers caught up in the commotion waited days to get through the South African border posts.
So we get stuck there. We spend more than 2 days or 3 days to cross over, then even to come back the same. All the lines are busy. We try to use our mask all the time, then we stay on our trucks. We are not combined with many people.
Ramaphosa's decision has been welcomed.
During the year, the border is not so much busy. But the end of the year, like December time, people that are traveling home, they're going to enjoy the holidays. The border is more busy. So that's why the president tried to close the border so that everyone can be safe.
Tighter restrictions may have somewhat eased congestion for now, but officials still have their hands full at some ports with desperate attempts at illegal entry. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Nigeria says it is expecting to receive donations of enough COVID-19 vaccines to cover 20% of its population. It says it's working hard to make these vaccines ready during the first quarter of the year. Our correspondent Philly Haza reports with more from Abuja.
The confirmation was made by the chairman of Nigeria's budget office, Ben Akabueze, during a virtual conference with other government officials while deliberating on the 2021 budget. He did not specify where the donations will come from, but he says it will include at least 4 vaccines approved by different countries across the world. As well as the donated vaccines for 20% of the population, Mr. Akabueze says plans are underway to fund the procurement of at least 50% of its vaccine requirement from this year's budget. Nigeria says the country will get the first 100,000 doses of vaccines between the end of January and the first week of February without specifying whether these will be donated or purchased by the government. Already plans are underway to come up with a framework for the distribution. The government says once vaccines have been validated by the World Health Organization and the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, vaccination will begin with 50,000 frontline health workers. President Buhari has tasked relevant officials to work harder to gain access to these vaccines as the number of cases of coronavirus has begun to rise since late last year. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
The demand for medical oxygen has surged in Egypt, and not just in hospitals. Many households are looking to buy or rent oxygen cylinders for patients with medium to severe coronavirus symptoms. CGTN's Adel El Mahroui brings us more from one of Egypt's biggest oxygen production facilities.
In Egypt, oxygen is now prescribed as an essential in the treatment of all COVID-19 patients. That has spiked demand for the gas, creating a huge gap in the market.
Oxygen consumption in some hospitals increased from 7 to 10-fold.
That has created a black market for oxygen cylinders and gas regulators, which has seen some prices triple. Ministries of Health, Interior, Trade and Industry have created a joint committee to manage the supply gap and launch a crackdown on the black market.
Normally 60% of our production goes to healthcare and the other 40% goes to the industrial sector. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've frozen our industrial deliveries and all our production goes to the medical sector.
The government has instructed all companies producing gases to maximize production capacity. Our truck drivers barely sleep now. Distribution fleets have never been so busy. We had oxygen reserves in our storage tanks. We are now withdrawing from them. There was a gap of 300,000 liters, and that has been quickly recovered with the steel companies joining us.
All major steel manufacturers have been instructed to decrease production so as to lower their consumption of industrial oxygen. Their facilities are now being used to increase the purity of the oxygen for medical purposes. Meanwhile, producers of medical-grade gases are expanding their production lines.
We've built this facility in less than a month since we became aware of the crisis. It is almost completed. We have missing electric panels from the National Electricity Company. They promised us to reduce their usual installation time to a third, but we need them to be even faster. The pandemic is harsh, and we must feel the shortage in the market.
The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of medical gases facilities in the healthcare system. And because of the sudden surge on oxygen, companies like this one have started to manufacture new facilities that will multiply the production of oxygen gas cylinders, which will be mainly used by individuals. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Our coverage continues on Africa Live. Here's a look at what's ahead. The northern Chinese city of Shijiazhuang rushes to contain a surge in coronavirus cases as it builds thousands of isolation units. With Joe Biden's inauguration due in a matter of days, what will a change of guard mean for Africa?
The mountain kingdom of Lesotho is renowned for its colorful blankets. For the Basotho, meaning the people of Lesotho, blankets are an essential part of all important life events in both urban and rural settings. Elizabeth Masetu gives presentations on the history and meaning of blankets. Libuseng Titi is a blanket designer who runs her own blanket store. Each of these women in their own way strive to keep the culture of Basotho blankets alive.
Welcome back, everyone, to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. We appreciate your company. In North China's Hebei province, authorities have confirmed 90 new coronavirus cases, 84 of them in the provincial capital, Shijiazhuang. The other 6 are in the neighboring city of Nta. Officials are setting up temporary isolation units in Shijiazhuang. Sin Zuan has more.
I'm currently at the construction site of the temporary isolation unit. So as you can see, the construction work is actually happening right here. And this is for 3,000 rooms. And the location is at the crossroad between the Zhengding County and also Gaocheng district of Shijiazhuang. So what we are seeing right now is some of the construction workers are actually taking a break on the buses and on the bus, and then there are more elsewhere because this is a huge construction site. Meanwhile, while we were waiting here, we saw some air condition being delivered and to this location because according to officials, this is construction, so 3,000 rooms. Each room is like a studio, one studio per person, and the room size is about 18 square meters per room. The room is equipped with daily necessity. All the construction began Wednesday, and right now it's just 2 days away, but we can see some major progress made, having those the basic framework of those rooms already set on the ground. And what these rooms are for and why they are having those people quarantine here is because this is a housing for settling direct contact and secondary close contact people. Previously, those people are from the hotspot, the Gaocheng district in Shijiazhuang. The reason why they are transferring those people here and also to some dormitory of schools as well as some of the hotel rooms in the city is because the health and also environment in previous villages is unsafe to contain the virus, and also those population are mostly elderly. So that's the reason why they have those people transfer here and have them quarantine here, so officials and also medical workers can monitor the situation on the ground and know when it's necessary and what really happened.
A team of international experts from the World Health Organization has arrived in the central Chinese city of Wuhan. Their visit is part of the WHO's research into the origins of the coronavirus, which was first reported in Wuhan at the end of 2019. They'll be meeting with local scientists and making on-site visits over the coming days. Xia Ruzhue has more.
A group of 13 international experts of World Health Organization arrived in Wuhan on Thursday morning, and I was in that airport and watching them getting off the plane and walking out of the airport. They're coming here to conduct joint research with Chinese scientists for the origin tracing of COVID-19. According to China's regulations, they needed negative nucleic acid and IgM antibody tests before boarding their flight from Singapore. After the experts landed in Wuhan airport, they took a body temperature check first. Then they were guided to a special waiting room to take the test again. According to China's entry policy, all international passengers with negative test results will be taken to the designated isolation areas for 2 weeks of quarantine. The expert team have checked in a hotel in Hongshan district in Wuhan yesterday afternoon.
The WHO mission was sent to China together with the partners, with experts who have a lot of knowledge in virology, epidemiology, sequencing of viral genomes. That is why it is a comprehensive question. It will be solved by different specialists, virologists, other specialists who will be working with Chinese scientists who still store the strains so that we could get all the necessary data and make specific conclusions on the basis of the material studied.
And we went there today. We found that there is a blue board on the wall of that hotel. It says that it is a designated medical observation area. We have no idea whether they will take the 14-day of quarantine or not, as no formal statement was given by the Chinese government yet.
U.S. authorities are warning of violence ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. Richard Nta has more.
The FBI is saying that there is a possibility that armed extremists could be planning further unrest in Washington, D.C. and every single state across the country. This is why you're seeing a stepped-up law enforcement presence in Washington, D.C. itself. Vice President Mike Pence earlier in the day met with security officials to talk about inauguration security. We know that there's going to be around 20,000 National Guard troops deployed on the streets, and ever since those riots last week, we have seen fences being erected around the Capitol, which has really turned into a fortress now. You're seeing barricades in the streets around the Capitol as well. It's the site is really unprecedented during the time of an inauguration, where you would normally see people flocking into the city. But of course, that is not happening. You've got leaders of Washington, D.C. and neighboring states urging people not to come into Washington, D.C. for the inauguration, partly because of the pandemic, but also because of these risks that have been put forward by law enforcement officials and security officials of further possible unrest.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu once referred to U.S. President Donald Trump as the, quote, greatest friend Israel has ever had in the White House, close quote. It was his tribute to Trump administration pro-Israel policies that sometimes raised questions. As Joe Biden gets ready to take over, many in Israel are wondering if the U.S.-Israel relationship will change. Stephanie Freed reports.
Over the past 4 years, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Donald Trump built a relationship characterized by frequent expressions of gratitude.
President Trump, thank you for today's historic decision. I want to first thank President Trump for his extraordinary efforts. I thanked him on behalf of the people of Israel.
Gratitude for unprecedented U.S. administration moves, like recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the occupied Golan Heights, despite a UN resolution disallowing that recognition.
Israel's capital is Jerusalem.
Gratitude for claiming Jerusalem as Israel's capital, even though Palestinians claim part of the city as their capital. Gratitude for pushing normalized ties between Israel and the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. Israel's leaders embraced those U.S. policies as the UN, Russia, Syria, the Palestinian Authority, human rights organizations, and Democrats criticized some of them.
Some local analysts say Israel is going to have to pay for the free lunches it's been getting until now. Others maintain the U.S.-Israel relationship will not change dramatically under a new administration.
President-elect Biden's ties with Israel stretch back to the 1970s. he repeatedly asserts his support for Israel's interests in both word and deed.
My love for your country.
But in recent years, the former vice president claimed Benjamin Netanyahu is moving Israel in the wrong direction. Biden favors bringing Palestinian leaders sidelined during Trump's tenure back to the negotiating table with Israel, and despite Israel's misgivings, he's considering returning to a 2015 Iran nuclear deal Trump abandoned.
Is a fundamental American interest in the Middle East, providing for regional stability, promoting peace between Israel and the Arab countries, building an anti-Iranian axis. So this is something that I have no doubt that the new administration will want to continue.
As a Democrat moves into the White House, Netanyahu's years-long alignment with the U.S. right may present stumbling blocks, but most analysts agree, regardless of administration, both sides ultimately want a smooth working relationship. Stephanie Fried, CGTN, Central Israel.
Staying on the U.S. political transition, with Trump's America First agenda, Africa was low on the list of priorities. But what could a Biden administration mean for Africa? Deji Badmus has been finding out.
Topsy-turvy, that's how some experts describe U.S.-Africa relations under the Trump presidency. A presidency that from day one made America the primary focus of its foreign policy.
At some point, there were some very positive developments, including the improvement of relationship between the U.S. and some countries, in particular Sudan. That was good. We also saw attempts by the Trump administration to come to the support of countries like Nigeria, including the sale of the Super Tucano aircraft.
In December last year, the U.S. removed Sudan from its list of state sponsors of terrorism, paving the way for the African nation to access international loans to fix its damaged economy. In Nigeria, the Super Tucano fighter planes are expected to start arriving from the U.S. from July. The country's military says the jets would help in ending the Boko Haram insurgency. Under the Trump administration, the U.S. has been quite supportive in helping Africa fight terrorism, providing logistics support, training, and even putting boots on the ground. But with President Trump announcing plans to draw down on U.S. troops in Africa at a time when terrorism is on the rise on the continent, security experts here think that will be counterproductive, hoping the incoming administration puts a stop to the plan.
We're also hoping that the Biden administration will not renege on promises of weapon support as well as sale to Africa.
In late 2020, the Trump administration launched the Prosper Africa program to boost U.S. trade and investments on the continent. But critics say trade relations are skewed in favor of the U.S., while others doubt a Biden government would be a game changer.
Trade is also about what you have to offer. What are we actually trading? Most of our activities in the area of exports are in primary products. No, as far as trade is concerned, I don't expect much. But as far as immigration policies are concerned, if more of our citizens have immigration opportunities to go to the United States and all of that, that could be a major advantage for us, because we know what the contribution of diaspora remittances is to our foreign exchange earnings.
President Trump's more restrictive immigration policy has been a major talking point on the continent for the entire 4 years of his presidency.
If you look at the immigration policy and the immigration tendencies of the Democratic Party, it is quite favorable to encouraging immigrants and moving into the United States. So from that perspective, the presidency under Joe Biden will be much more favorable to Africans with regards to immigration policy. I see that happening.
There was optimism across Africa that the continent may get a fairer deal under Biden, but many believe not much would change fundamentally in U.S. foreign policy towards Africa.
In terms of a strategic importance, national importance to the United States, Africa no longer commands that kind of influence to the Americans, whether we like it or not. The major interest that America had in Africa at the time was the interest America had in oil.
For now, most African governments are adopting a wait-and-see approach, closely following what a Biden warms up to the continent. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
A lot more to come for you here on Africa Live. We'll see you on the other side of the break with our business segment. Here's a look at the headlines. Coming up in business, for his first economic plan, U.S. President-elect Joe Biden unveils a $1.9 trillion stimulus package proposal. And we take a look at what Nigeria needs to improve in order to take advantage of the Africa Free Trade Area deal.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Richard Nta. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden has unveiled a $1.9 trillion economic relief package known as the American Rescue Plan. It includes direct payments of $1,400 to most Americans and increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour. The plan also includes $415 billion to fight the coronavirus. The bill also proposes to raise the federal per-week unemployment benefit to $400 and extending it through the end of September. This is the first of two major spending initiatives Biden will seek in the first few months of his presidency and comes as a winter surge of the coronavirus pandemic in the U.S. breaks records. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden is also expected to take a different approach to immigration than the Trump administration. That includes making changes in the H-1B visa program. Mark New reports.
Even during the COVID pandemic, the digital economy has rapidly expanded, fueling an appetite for workers with computer science and engineering skills. But many tech industry executives say the Trump administration has tightened restrictions on the H-1B visa, stifling the pipeline of talent from abroad.
It was a virtual wall that was built with all these restrictions and hurdles.
As the CEO of a company offering credit cards for students, Kalpesh Kapadia says he's hired half a dozen employees on the H-1B. He has 120 U.S. employees, but says partly because of visa issues, he opened a second office in India with 40 staff, jobs that could have gone to the U.S.
So I expect in the first 6 months of Biden administration, a lot of executive orders reversing some of these employee-employer business unfriendly policies.
Kapadia says one obstacle is a new Labor Department rule that raised the wage requirement for a number of high-tech jobs. In one example, that means companies would have to pay entry-level computer programmers on H-1Bs as much as 150% more.
It's emotionally exhausting, and mentally you're checking in every day on the H-1B website to see what has happened with your process and where is it stuck in the queue.
Lawani is a senior product manager at Deserve on an H-1B, which he got transferred from another company. But that turned out to be a 5-month process because the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services issued Lawani an RFE, or request for evidence. RFEs have gone way up under the Trump administration, and one major problem, Lawani says, is that his job title of product manager wasn't even listed in the specialty occupations.
Because their roles are outdated and they don't even have the latest job descriptions, they have to literally go back and provide description around every course that they've taken in undergrad, every course that they've taken in the master's degree, and every experience that they've had in different companies to show how this whole experience in education ties back to this new job description.
President-elect Biden's website says he plans to exempt from any immigrant visa cap graduates of PhD programs in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields, and that foreign graduates of doctoral programs should be given a green card with their degree.
Biden knows how important they are to the growth of innovation. It's kind of very interesting to me that 3 of the biggest tech companies we have are run by individuals who were born in India.
I'm just hoping that with Biden administration, we can increase the transparency, and all these certain changes would attract the right foreign talent, which would ultimately improve and scale innovation.
Mark New, CGTN, San Jose, California.
Well, the U.S. and China have been locked in a tech battle over the last year, one that has expanded to even include a social media app. Here's a recap of what's happened so far.
All they talked about is TikTok, 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 TikTok. TikTok is very successful. It does tremendous business in the United States. We're looking at TikTok. We may be banning TikTok.
President Trump issued 2 executive orders on August 6, banning transactions with China's Tencent and ByteDance in 45 days on security concerns.
We have to have the total security from China.
ByteDance is the parent company of short video sharing app TikTok, while Tencent owns the social media app WeChat. Those popular apps must switch to American ownership to keep operating in the U.S.
We are looking at a lot of alternatives with respect to TikTok. Whether it's Microsoft or somebody else. Walmart is going to buy it along with Oracle. I think it's going to be a fantastic deal.
But so far, no deal at all. The Microsoft bid was turned down. Oracle and Walmart are still waiting for answers from U.S. regulators. Their proposal, according to ByteDance, was to take only 20% shares in a new venture called TikTok Global instead of a buyout. In fact, TikTok and WeChat were neither sold nor banned even after their reprieves expired.
U.S. District Court Judge Carl Nichols put a pause on the Trump administration's move, granting TikTok an injunction it had filed against the order.
The same thing happened for WeChat. A North Carolina judge believed there was hardly any evidence that a ban on WeChat would address U.S. national security concerns. However, Huawei didn't get so lucky. After fighting for nearly 2 years, the Chinese telecom giant was officially cut off from all of its core chip suppliers on September 15th.
Washington claims, without offering evidence, that the company's equipment could be used for spying. And these latest restrictions have been applied to stop Huawei getting around existing sanctions by sourcing its components from third parties.
To preserve the Honor smartphone line, Huawei sold the entire unit to another Chinese IT company in 2 months. The tech war did not stop there. The Trump administration added dozens of Chinese tech companies to its entity list, including chipmaker SMIC and drone manufacturer DJI. The U.S. government has also appealed the judge's order blocking restrictions on TikTok. Some say the moves are just the outgoing president's last attempt to cement his legacy as a hardliner against China.
The African Continental Free Trade Area kicked off earlier this month, and Nigerian industrialists are hoping to get a piece of the pie. However, they need to overcome a myriad of challenges affecting manufacturing in their country, as Deji Badmus reports from Lagos.
This textile factory in the Nigerian commercial city of Lagos is hoping to scale up production in the coming weeks to take advantage of the wider markets offered by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area after. But the operators fear the high cost of production in the country could work against their plans. It's a problem the main manufacturing body in the country acknowledges could cost local manufacturers from reaping the gains of the Continental Trade Initiative.
There are challenges for the manufacturing sector which needs to be overcome before we are able to competitively engage in the continental free trade area. Government is certainly aware of this, and we are hoping that we'll be able to address those issues, even though manufacturers are also gearing up. We are retooling, we are trying to increase our capacities, and we look forward to an engaging interaction with our colleagues from other parts of Africa.
Infrastructure challenges, high cost of funds, and forex scarcity have for long been the bane of manufacturing in Nigeria. In recent times, The sector's contribution to the country's GDP has hardly exceeded 11%. But in spite of the challenges of Nigeria's manufacturing sector, advocates of the trade initiative say the country stands to benefit a lot from other sectors.
If you take things like the financial services sector, for instance, our banking sector, many of them are already doing well around the continent. Our telecom sector, our ICT, e-commerce, our entertainment industry, the Nollywood, the fashion industry, and even the distributive trade sector is also part of services. So when you look at the services component of the economy, the opportunities are there and the challenges are not that much.
In the context of AFCTA, we can have African countries buy our crude so that there is stability in our crude supply and think that's one. We can also have these African countries buy refined products, petroleum products. So if we do refineries, we know that there are customers out there. So on both counts, they will bring stable foreign exchange revenue and then stop all these distortions that we are having in our macroeconomic policy.
Nigeria is home to about 50% of the estimated 90 million MSMEs in Africa. Experts believe the AfTA presents these local MSMEs a golden opportunity to expand their markets across the continent with ease and create much-needed jobs in the process.
So if everything works well and there are no major barriers to trade, that's a great opportunity for any entrepreneur. I know Nigerians are generally very entrepreneurial. So it's a great opportunity for investors in Nigeria to scale up their investments.
The potential of the AfTA on the Nigerian economy is indeed huge, but much work is still needed to get the country's manufacturing sector more functional so that local factories like this one are not thrown out of business under the weight of the stiff competition the initiative is sure to bring. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Egypt has signed a memorandum of understanding with Germany's Siemens for the construction of a $23 billion high-speed train line. The project will kick off on an initial 460-kilometer section running from Ain Sakona on the Red Sea to New Alamein on the Mediterranean coast. It will be passing through a new capital under construction in the desert east of Cairo.
We're talking about a project that will cost roughly 360 billion Egyptian pounds within 2 years. It will be built according to the highest scientific, technological and technical standards available.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This will be the spirit of Egypt. Fast, modern and always world-class negotiations.
A government survey shows that Tunisians are eager to switch to 5G technology and expect it to be rolled out in the next 2 years. Users in various fields such as agriculture industry, medical and services say 5G will help optimize costs and increase production. From Tunis, here is CGTN's Adnan Chouachi with the details.
Karim Mahrez is a senior consultant and a successful ICT entrepreneur in Tunisia and Africa. He says that 5G's industrial applications will bring revolutionary change and will form the backbone of future economic advancement and public services.
5G is a real opportunity because it will create some 22 million new jobs by 2030. It will create $13 trillion of growth and new projects. We must understand that 5G is not like the evolution of the mobile phone from 3G to 5G. 5G is some 1 million IoT per square kilometer. 5G is the 4.0 industry, drones, digital art, connected schools with robots. 5G is also telesurgery.
Tunisia's telecoms minister had earlier said licenses suitable for the next generation of mobile broadband services could be awarded this year. The Netcom Tunisia chief executive says 5G will offer an opportunity for developing countries to boost their economies and create new jobs in new sectors. He asserts that China's Huawei is the world leader in this technology.
Huawei does not only offer this possibility of 5G infrastructure with the Internet of Things and industry-related services, it's more than that. Huawei also provides the layers above, like artificial intelligence, as well as data and privacy protection. I'm sure that many decision makers in African and developing countries are smart enough to deploy and use Chinese networks and artificial intelligence than any other competitors.
Huawei Northern Africa's Vice President in charge of public relations for the Mediterranean region, Adnan Ben Halima, explains that the Chinese company is willing to install 5G technology that will help Tunisia and the world.
5G technology now is a new trend of technologies. I think it will play a very important role for the future to develop new services and provide new connectivity. We are really eager to deploy this technology in Tunisia and also in other countries in this region. Huawei is very advanced thanks to the research and development efforts that have been done recently, and thanks to the product quality and the solution that we are providing to our customers.
In December 2020, Tunisia Telecom carried out the first test call, which showed a speed of connections to the 5G mobile network exceeding 2.2 gigabytes per second. This 5G mobile test call was made with a smartphone and a modem, using the telecom company's live network.
According to the ICT Ministry, Tunisia's telecoms regulators launched a feasibility study of 5G. The licenses suitable for the next generation of mobile broadband services could be awarded in 2021. Experts assert that 5G networks will change several industries. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
And we are not done just yet. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Stay with us. Here's a look at the headlines. All set for delayed African Nations Championship in Cameroon.